Welcome to Moderating Candidate Forums created by the Voter Service team of the Port Washington-Manhasset League. This video is designed to be offered in conjunction with role-play exercises to give participants practice handling common situations. So, what's our agenda today? We will lay out the Voter Services goals and team roles for forums, the league standards for moderators, and recommend preparation needed to ensure our goals are met. At the end, we will offer some tools for managing question rotation and resources for further study. Why do we offer candidate forums? Our primary goal is to inform the public by offering candidates who are running against each other the opportunity to respond to questions of importance to voters in civil discourse using a fair process. Critically important to this primary goal is maintaining the reputation of the league as an impartial arbiter. If candidates and the public do not see us as impartial, nonpartisan, and completely fair, we will destroy public trust in the league as a fair dealer, and candidates will be reluctant to participate in our forums. Candidates and voters benefit when we create a forum atmosphere where candidates feel comfortable and fairly treated. This requires us to be scrupulously fair about timing, consistently courteous, even when we're being firm, and disciplined about keeping a poker face in our body language and facial expressions. Even if you violently disagree with or want to cheer something a candidate is saying, do not exhibit your disagreement or approval in any way. Your opinions on the issues are not only irrelevant in this context, they are counterproductive. It is, however, fine to look like you are enjoying hearing answers, so long as you are enjoying hearing all of them. Finally, think about the value you and the league create by holding yourselves to these standards. This is who we are. This is what the public values. This is what causes people to want to join our efforts, to join the Voter Services team. We must protect this. So, who's on the Voter Services team? The most visible role on the team is the moderator. The moderator manages the forum process, from reading the rules through opening statements, question and answer, closing statements, and final words. The moderator is also the final arbiter of any issues that arise with candidates, the audience, or other. And sometimes the moderator may serve as the forum manager, contacting the candidates, arranging the venue, selecting and supervising the team before the event, offering the welcome and introductions at the beginning, everything required for running the show. Vetters, who should include local league members who understand their community of voters, collect and select questions for the moderator, usually more than the moderator needs, but not twice as many. In-person forums usually have questions submitted on index cards. Vetters ensure that the questions are easy for the moderator to read, that they cover a broad range of issues relevant to this office, this community, and these candidates, and that none are duplicative, personal, or abusive. All things being equal, choose questions where the views of the candidates will differ rather than being the same. Vetters for our virtual forums collect questions from electronic portals, provide a list in advance to the moderator, and may, depending on the moderator, also offer questions in real time during the forum. Collectors at in-person forums pass out cards, collect them, and walk them to the vetters. Sometimes we can ask collectors to act as enforcers. Because they're part of our team and circulating around the audience, they can position themselves near audience members who need special attention. The timer alerts the candidates and moderators when there is 30 seconds left and when time is up. Best practice is to have the timer sit between the candidates and the audience with large two-sided physical props that are visible to everyone, including the audience. So, what characteristics contribute to public perception that a moderator is impartial? First, that the moderator won't be voting for these candidates. That is why league rules require the moderator to be from outside the district and have no personal relationships with any candidate. Moderators should not have a public and partisan political presence. They should not be writing partisan letters to the editor, speaking in support or opposition of candidates or parties at community meetings, signing petitions, making campaign contributions, and attending fundraisers. All of these are not acceptable activities for moderators. Moderators can, of course, advocate for nonpartisan issues. And of course, they need to be even-handed and fair and willing to enforce rules and exact consequences when candidates or audience members bend or violate league rules for the forum. Just as a side note that you will hear again, moderators succeed when they set expectations about the process rules clearly, remind everyone of those expectations at the first infraction, and then enforce the rules for repeated violation. Clarity and consistency helps you keep the audience supporting your decisions. What matters besides looking impartial and treating everyone fairly? Looking and acting like a credible leader. Consider dressing in some version of corporate casual, simply and comfortably, so that you can focus on the forum and forget your clothes. When you interact with candidates or the audience, try very hard to avoid engaging on the issues. Your role is not to explain why you are right or they are wrong. You are managing the process so the audience can hear the views of the candidates calmly, with civility, and fairly. You are not required to defend the merits of your decisions. The rule is the rule, and you are the judge of how and when any rule must be followed. Verbally and non-verbally, treat everyone with respect. Focus on the task of ensuring the audience hears the views of the candidates in a fair and civil process. Don't worry about being a broken record, but do be a respectful, calm, courteous, unflappable broken record. Try your hardest to not allow any comments to get to you. And if some comment does get to you, keep that to yourself. You are the professional, and it's your job to keep things running smoothly. If the audience gets obstreperous, then it's your job to stop it. Stopping small infractions early and calmly prevents offenders from feeling quite as entitled. If you can't get the audience or the candidates to follow the rules, then you should be willing to pause the forum. If you are stuck about what to do, move away from the mic and confer with your team, your hosts like library personnel, PTA, school officials, and possibly security. Ending the forum is a last resort, but you make the audience aware of that possibility so they can help you get the offender under control, verbally, not physically. Remember, you are the person in control at all times because league and forum rules give you the right to be the final arbiter. Okay, we've discussed the goals, the team, and the fundamental attributes of a moderator. What's required to consistently meet the forum goals and succeed as a moderator? Setting and meeting expectations will give you control and help you keep it. And this begins at the earliest stages of organizing the forum and all the way through to the end of the forum. We'll be taking each of these in turn, beginning with how do you set expectations, beginning with candidate outreach. If you are acting as the voter services chair for a forum in your league, these are what you will need to do. If you are moderating for a league other than your own, you should expect the local league running the forum to do these. You'll want to acquire contact information for the candidates as soon as possible after they file signature petitions to get on the ballot. Candidates or their parties have to collect a certain number of signatures to be certified by the County Board of Elections or by the clerk of local special districts, that is fire, water, parks, police, garbage, libraries, school boards, and so on. Only certified candidates can participate in our forums. Some election clerks are helpful in providing contact information, some aren't. For races where political parties are involved, parties may provide contact information or carry messages from the league to the candidate. As soon as you are in contact with a candidate, get them to agree to the rules. In races for New York State and Congress, campaign managers are powerful, and you should ask for them to agree as well. That binds the candidates and can reduce fussing from campaign managers, whose job often seems to be to fuss on behalf of the candidate. Reminding candidates and campaign managers that you want each of them to do well in a fair, disciplined process, because the league mission is to educate and engage all voters, goes a long way to building trust. It doesn't hurt to offer some encouragement about the effort campaigns require, but do so even-handedly. Encourage both candidates who appeal to you, as well as those you would never consider. Courtesy and kindness are ways of showing respect. If you're moderating outside your league, much of this page may not apply to you, although you have a right to expect that the sister league is doing it well. What do you need to ask from your sister league? Ask questions about the candidates, about how the campaigns are going, about which issues are hot. Make sure you get the list of procedures that the forum candidates have agreed to. You need to know the timing for openings, answers, and closings, how the order of speaking will be determined, and how you will get the questions, along with other local preferences that may be different from what you are used to. And be sure to ask if every candidate has agreed to the rules. If they haven't yet, keep asking. And you need to know the New York State League rules. To be sure that they will be followed, check the procedures to make sure candidate expectations have been appropriately set, particularly about no empty chair and recording the forum. An empty chair debate is when there are fewer than 2 candidates competing for 1 seat. If, in a 2-person forum, 1 candidate fails to appear, the forum must be canceled. The candidate who is ready to speak cannot be given a league platform. Of course, if they'd like to move out of the venue and chat with people, that's on them. But we can't give them a microphone and time. Audience members may not use smartphones to record. you have to stop citizen journalists who want to live stream or record the forum. Credentialed journalists will sometimes record audio so they can make accurate quotes for their print stories. If you see them doing so, quietly ask for their credentials. Newsday, Anton, the Island 360, but not Joe Smith's blog. Consider always having a video made of the forum, preferably a wide view which captures all the candidates and the moderator from a fixed location rather than jumping back and forth. Having a full recording of the forum available afterwards means that individual citizens who are present at the debate do not need their own recording. Also, consider having a copy of the rules printed on large format paper and posted on the entrance to the venue, with a larger font note at the top announcing something like, by entering the forum venue, audience members agreed to abide by the forum rules, or offenders may be required to leave. It's unusual for league events to have serious disruption, although it's been known to happen. It's a good idea to let the local precinct know that you're holding a forum at this place on this day and time, and police presence or intervention might be needed because traffic or parking issues might arise, or because the campaign has triggered serious controversy. Moderators need to know how they will get questions and who will vet them. Local leagues have preferences for the processes of acquiring and vetting questions, sometimes depending on the type of forum. The moderator should understand the details for this forum to explain them to the audience, including whether the wording of the questions will be modified or not. Vetters should select questions that are relevant and as broad as possible, worded with civility and clarity. If questions contain acronyms, vetters should provide the words as well as the letters to ensure everyone knows what is being discussed. Questions should be appropriate for all candidates. Although we don't want to censor issues or stifle the audience, contentious questions should be worded carefully. While some people get upset if their wording is modified, vetters may use their discretion about making questions grammatically easier for the moderator to read, choosing from among duplicate questions, or combining elements of duplicate questions. Finally, it's important to collect and retain all cards and lists of questions. Occasionally, there's a protest about the number of questions devoted to a specific issue, or the number of questions that are focused against a particular candidate. Butterflies. It's another preparation issue. Feeling nerves ahead of time is normal. Planning, rehearsal, and preparation can go a long way to overcome butterflies. To reduce performance anxiety, anticipate the issues you'll face. Ask what the areas of controversy and contention are. Mentally rehearse the evening and your role. Be intentional about your dress, your demeanor, your tone of voice, your facial expression. Recognize that the role of the moderator is partially about being an actor. While you want to look human, nothing you do or say should look like you prefer one side over the other, that this answer is better or worse than that answer, that you are annoyed, surprised, or in agreement. You must be more than fair in your actions. You must look fair. Practice your poker face. One other set of considerations about what you wear. You're going to have to stand comfortably for 90 minutes or more. You may have to go up and down stairs to get to the podium. Choose clothes that you can be comfortable in, really comfortable. Finally, remember to breathe deeply. Oxygen can calm you. Remind yourself that the audience wants a good experience. They want you to do well, so the forum goes well. They are on your side. Your preparation is not complete until you check the venue. Final checks at the venue. Often, the first thing you'll do is check the mics. Know how to turn them on and off, and how close you need to speak into them. While you're doing that, make sure you can see the timekeeper and the candidates, and that the candidates can see the timekeeper. Meet and welcome the candidates. Confirm the pronunciation of their names, perhaps writing them phonetically on your question tool. Explain that we do not use honorifics, doctor, senator, assembly member, congress member, the honorable, because we feel it makes the playing field unequal. Determine the speaking sequence, for example, by drawing lots or by alphabetical order of last names. Be explicit about who will go first and last for the opening and closing. If new issues arise, remember, you are part of a team. The moderator can make a decision if the moderator is comfortable making a decision. You can pause things for a moment, move away from the microphone, and confer with the local team. Then return to the mic and explain the decision to the audience and candidates. Of course, you can also ask the candidates to agree if someone wants to change something. Your first thought should be, is this fair to all the candidates? When it's finally showtime, make sure everyone knows the sequence of speakers and has the key messages that go with their role. You orchestrate the introductions. We generally begin with welcoming the audience and the candidates, usually by a host, perhaps by the library director, PTA president, or league president. Be sure to thank or acknowledge the venue and sponsoring organizations and their personnel, concisely but courteously. The first league member to speak should explain that the league is nonpartisan. It never supports or opposes any candidate or party. That our mission is to educate and engage voters to participate in democracy. And perhaps that the purpose of this forum is to allow voters to hear the views of the candidates. And that we welcome new members. That information on membership is available. Make sure you have a table or whatever where you can direct people, or you could tell them to go to our website, LWV of PWM.org. Next, you will want to introduce each candidate and the office they're vying for. You'll want to give the election dates, location, and as relevant, instructions on voting absentee or early. Then the moderator reads the rules, stressing that all the candidates have agreed to them. Have the timer prepared to demonstrate the signals when you read those rules. Next, let's talk about setting expectations for the audience. Reading the rules for candidates tells the audience what candidates have agreed to. And violating the rules can have consequences for the candidates. It's also useful to lay out some expectations for the audience. For example, they may clap after opening statements, but then they should stay quiet until the closing statements. You may want to explain that audience clapping detracts from how much time candidates can speak. And our purpose is to hear the candidates. Remind them to silence their cell phones. and that there is no unofficial recording of the forum. For some groups, you need to remind them that campaign literature, buttons, paraphernalia are not allowed in the venue or on the candidate's persons. Your team should be prepared to take such material and keep it safe until after the forum. Check incumbents for lapel pins. On Zoom forums, the background must be plain, no name or banners, and no team t-shirts. They need to change it or cover it. By setting your role as an arbiter, you establish your authority. Be careful not to dilute that by getting into a dialogue or a debate with an audience member. You need this authority to keep the forum moving in a disciplined way and to periodically enforce rules. You don't lose authority by offering the audience options. Do you want to end the forum now, or would you prefer to wait a few minutes while security removes this person? Nor do you lose authority by briefly conferring with your team. So let's go over a few specific tactics. Rotating who goes first and second is very important for the moderator. Winging it will get you in trouble. Use a tool like one of the samples you'll see in the next few minutes. You check off who's spoken. You have a clear map for who goes next. Since the sequence of who speaks first keeps changing, being fair is complicated. With 2 candidate forums, it's easy to skip turns, but with 3 and 4 candidate forums, you need a matrix. Your job is also to be in charge. Your opinions about issues are not relevant, nor are your opinions about the quality of answers. Your job is to be civil, but enforce the rules. You should interrupt a candidate who speaks past time. Say, your time is up. You may finish your sentence. If there's an audience disruption, say, excuse me, you heard the rules at the beginning. You cannot just stand up and ask a question. Please sit down now. Or say, when you, the audience, take time to give your opinions on answers, you reduce the time for candidates to speak. Please remain silent until the closing statements. If there are repeat offenders, you can say, I will have to impose a consequence, which can involve decreasing your candidate's time or increasing the other candidate's time. Be proactive about courtesy and keeping the playing field level. It earns goodwill. What does this mean? It certainly means rotating the speaking even-handedly and keeping candidates to the time limits and keeping the audience relatively quiet. But it can mean also offering guidance to candidates when what they're doing interferes with the purpose of the forum. For example, if the voice is too low, pause things immediately and ask if the audience can hear them. Don't just say, speak louder. Suggest the candidate move the mic within an inch or 2 of its mouth. Or if a candidate is coughing, you might signal for water to be brought to all the candidates. And when you make a mistake, and that's when, not if, thank them and say, you're right, sorry. When you are in charge, use your power, not just to keep the process right, but to help candidates and audience have a good experience. So, what's the bottom line? Be prepared. The more experience you get, the more comfortable you'll become. Some of us still have butterflies before every forum, but you have 3 secret weapons: preparation, the forum rules, and your league team. And generally, you will have the audience on your side. Remember, they want you to succeed. The purpose is to learn where each of these candidates stand. Our job is to run the forum so that the public gets as much information as possible. And so the candidates feel like they were given equal time and attention. It is not our job to ensure the audience is satisfied with all the answers a candidate gives. It is not our job to approve or disapprove any of these answers. We just do our best to create a process that's as fair as possible. We can't force candidates to answer questions they choose not to answer. We can't keep candidates from saying unwise things. We must trust audience members to learn from what candidates do and say. We just do our best to keep the process smooth and fair while we remain nonpartisan, courteous, and respectful. And your best will help make our democracy work. Next, I'd like to take you through some tools. Here are 3 time-tested tools for keeping track of who has answered and who goes next. There are multiple ways of making these matrices or grids. You should figure out which one works best for you. Sample A and B are for forums with 4 candidates. C is for 3 candidates, but these structures work for any number. We've occasionally had forums with as many as 9 or even 13 candidates. Remember, you must have at least 2 to avoid an empty chair. In sample A, you write in the first column the names of the candidates in the order in which they will give their opening statements. Note that in the column labeled opening, candidate A will speak first for the opening, then B will speak, then C, then D. In the column labeled Q1, candidate B will speak first, then C, then D, and A will go last. As you call on each candidate to begin their opening or to answer questions, you circle the letter and cross it out. Of course, you'll need a sheet of paper that allows you 15 or more columns to ensure you have a column for every question. Sample grid B is similar, except the questions go down, not across. After the lottery, write the candidates' names across the top. A equals Joe, B equals Carol, C equals Sarah, D equals Nick, and so on. And then you look for the number 1 on the row labeled opening and ask candidate A first and candidate B second, etc. For the first question, which is the second column, candidate B comes first. Then for question number 2, candidate C comes first, and so forth. Sample grid C is perhaps the easiest to use, but it may take you more time to set up. Create it by writing opening, leaving some space, then Q1, leave space, then Q2, leave space, and you can add a second or third column so that you have everything on one page. Under the word opening, write the candidate's name in speaking order, first, second, third. Under question 1, write the candidates' names in the same order, but begin with the B candidate, then C, then A. Under question 2, write the candidate's name, C first, then A, then B. And continue doing this until you have 15 or so questions. Under closing, write the names of the candidates in the same order as for the opening. Each of these grids has moderators who swear by it, but which one you use is less important than you use the one that works for you. Be sure to leave enough room on the page so you can make small notations. For example, if a candidate goes over time, you could put a plus. Then if it happens again, put a plus and give him a warning. Or, for example, if one candidate's supporters applaud his answers, you might note that, so that besides staring at them to quiet them, you also know how often they've interrupted. In the heat of asking questions and hearing answers, sometimes it's hard to remember details. Use your matrix to keep the questions rotating fairly across the candidates and to keep track of when you've had to intervene to keep the process smooth. Don't try to wing it, even with 2 candidates. Finally, here are some league websites that offer more information on moderating and setting up forums. You can pause the video to either type in the URL or to Google the title. New York State has a toolkit that is 60 or 70 pages. We hope that this has been useful, and may your future moderating be both satisfying and fun. Moderating well is something that leagues across the country are known for, and something voters value. Thank you for joining a legacy that just celebrated 100 years.